What is going on, everybody, and welcome to my Postmortem for my Ludum Dare 42 Game Jam game, which I called Edge Runner. So Ludum Dare 42 began on August 10th, 2018, and it's basically a game jam where they drop a theme at the beginning of it, and you have to make a game based on that theme over the course of the weekend. So for this game jam, the theme was running out of space. And so for me, I participated in the 48-hour part of the game jam, where basically it's a little bit harder. You have to work by yourself and you have to make everything from scratch within that 48-hour time period. So no outside assets of any kind are allowed. And that's the way that I've always participated in the game jam, and personally I think that's kind of really the spirit of it. You basically create something from nothing, which I think is really awesome. And the game that I came up with is a game that I called Edge Runner. And let me tell you, my game Edge Runner is so good. I am so proud of it. I may be a little bit biased because I did make the game, but I think this is unquestionably the best Ludum Dare game that I've made so far, and I'm super proud of it, super happy with it. And because of that, I am going to be continuing development on this for a little bit. And I think I am going to be bringing it to mobile because I think that's where a game like this could do really well. It's just a simple, cool little mechanic, and I think it's enough to build off of and make something really cool out of it. So if you haven't played it already, I highly suggest that you go and play it. I think a lot of the things that I'm going to be mentioning in the video are going to make a lot more sense if you've actually played it for yourself. So I'll leave a link to the game down in the description below, and if you're playing on a desktop PC or a laptop, you can just go ahead and play it right in your browser if you'd like. Although to get the full experience, if you are on a PC, I definitely recommend downloading the game and playing it that way. Because there are just a couple features that aren't in the web version, and I'll be talking about those a little bit later. So if you can, definitely go play the game right now. If you can't, no big deal. I'm going to be putting some footage and screenshots up on the screen so you kind of have a reference of what's going on in the game. Alright, spoiler warning, the rest of this video we're going to be going into full detail on the game, so if you don't want anything ruined, stop watching right now and go play the game for yourself. It doesn't take that long, don't worry. So this video is kind of going to be a classic post-mortem where I talk a little bit about my development process and what I was thinking at each step along the way. Then we're going to get into what went right, what went wrong, some things that I would do differently next time, and the future for this game, because I think this game has a very bright future. So anyways, if you enjoy this video at all, make sure you give it a like, and also feel free to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already for more very cool independent video game developer related content. And if you have any questions or other comments for me, feel free to drop them down in the comments section below. But enough about that, let's talk a little bit more about my game Edge Runner. So first I'm going to talk a little bit about how I came up with the idea for the game Edge Runner. So basically this Ludum Dare was a little bit different in the sense that it started out 3 hours earlier than it normally does. So normally they start at 6 p.m. For my Pacific time zone on the Friday of the jam. But I guess to kind of shift for different time zones so different people get the theme at a different time, because this is a global event after all. They pushed it forward by 3 hours, so the theme actually dropped at 3 p.m. Now I was still at work at my IT job at 3 p.m. So I just kind of saw the theme, and unfortunately it was like a super busy day that day, so I didn't have any time to like brainstorm or anything like that while I was at work. But I was able to read the theme and just kind of put it in the back of my mind. And I did get to talk to a couple of my coworkers about the theme a little bit and see what they thought of it. But anyways, by the time I was driving home, I didn't really have a good idea of what I wanted to do yet. But when I got home, I was just kind of thinking about it, and I said the theme out loud. I said like running out of space, kind of like that. And then for whatever reason, when I said that, it kind of clicked in my head, this idea of where you're kind of controlling some guy on a line, and he's like kind of endlessly runner style running out of space, like physically running out of the universe. So with my Ludum Dare games, if you haven't already noticed, I definitely try to make them silly and humorous, and I thought that this would be like a very funny take on the theme that I could use and, you know, make a cool game out of it. But anyways, as I'm kind of getting ready to start working on everything, I'm kind of going back and forth like, do I really want to do this idea? Do I not? But then I sat down and started brainstorming a little bit, and I'm like, okay, I can do this kind of the traditional way where I'm filling up a room and I'm putting boxes in it and we're running out of space to put things. Or I can do this kind of unique take on it where, you know, you're physically running out of the universe. And at that point I was just like, you know what? I have something kind of in my head. I like it enough. Let's just go with it. So anyways, I sketched out a couple things and then I was like, you know what? This seems cool. Let's go ahead and move forward with it. So then what I did is I kind of did like a storyboard style thing, and it's what you're seeing on the screen right now. Basically there's like a bunch of different boxes, and it's basically every screen that you'll possibly see in the game. So it literally starts with the splash screen, then moves to the title screen, and then you see that there's like a guy walking, there's a little bit of dialogue. You're gonna start playing the game. If you lose all your lives, you go to a game over screen. If not, there's kind of going to be like this little halfway point where there's a little bit more dialogue in the middle, and then once you pass that, you're going to go into a sped up version of the game, so it's a little bit faster, a little more challenging, and then you see that the transmission gets all scrambled and it says like transmission lost on the screen, and then at the very end there's supposed to be me, you know, thanking the player for playing my game or whatever. I think it would be kind of an interesting little thing to throw in at the end. However, if you played the web version, that's one of the things that did not show up. I'm going to be talking a little bit about that later though. So then the next step was to kind of figure out the gameplay a little bit. So for whatever reason, I kind of like the idea of where you control the line and the player just completely aimlessly runs forward. And so you just have kind of control over the path, and the player's going to run on whatever path that your little line makes. So at this point in the night, I didn't have a whole lot of time because I wanted to get to bed a little bit earlier, so I could wake up on Saturday early and just get a good head start on Saturday. But basically on Friday night, what I got done is just the basic trail renderer physics with the what's called the edge collider attached to the trail renderer. Just kind of got that working and made sure that 2D objects just kind of fall and sit on it properly. And then, so that's basically all I got done that night. The next day when I woke up on Saturday, I started kind of improving a little bit and started adding in the player object of the player actually running, and then you being able to control the line, which I spent probably a little bit too much time on. I'll go into detail a little bit later on that. And then once I had kind of my core mechanic in place, then I kind of started moving over towards some art, got the game looking a little bit prettier, and then so this is where I got kind of my basic gameplay stuff in and everything like that. Then the next day, I actually got my game to a playable state where you could actually lose the game. You couldn't quite win it yet. And then kind of did some more supplemental art assets, added things in like the dialogue system and the power-ups and the checkpoint system. And then by some miracle, I pulled it all together pretty much like right up at the deadline. So got it submitted, got it uploaded, and everything was pretty much all good. Alright, well that's a lie. It's a game development project. Things definitely went wrong. So we're going to talk about what went wrong in the development of this game, Edge Runner. Okay, so one thing that I briefly mentioned already is the fact that I had a little like video that was supposed to play at the end, which didn't on the web player, I guess for whatever reason. The web player isn't compatible with the, video player asset that's in Unity, so that's not cool at all. I mean, maybe it is, but I kind of tried a couple ways at the last minute to get it to work, and it just wouldn't, unfortunately. Didn't have a whole lot of time to research it because this was kind of one of the very last things, one of the final touches that I wanted to put on the game. But if you do download the full version of the game, you will get that little video at the end of me, thanking the player. And I think it's kind of silly. But if you aren't able to download the game or whatever, I'm just going to show you what happens when you're playing through the game and when you finish the game, and then the video at the end. So here it is. What? Oh, Oh, you think I know what's at the edge of the universe? No. I'm just a game developer who took the theme of this game jam way too literally. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed playing it, and if you want to learn more about the development of this, go check out my YouTube channel, Johnny Turbo Game Development. Have a good one. So as you can see, the screen's supposed to go all staticky, then it says transmission lost, then it comes up with me, and I make a little bit of a joke and pimp my YouTube channel just a little bit, of course. Originally, what I actually wanted to happen is if you used continues at any point in the game, where if you died and then you just said continue instead of starting all the way back over, I'd kind of tease the player a little bit and say, like, all right, thanks for beating my game, but next time, try not to use any continues. I didn't have anything like super clever for what I'd say if you beat the game without any continues, but I did record both those videos, so I have them and they were ready to go, but I just didn't have enough time to program that logic in. Even though it is pretty simple, I was like really rushing to get this game uploaded and everything before the deadline. So those were a couple things that weren't able to get into the full game. Another thing that you may notice in the web player that you won't notice if you downloaded the full game, in the beginning text, the part where it actually like tells you how to play the game, where it says, "Hey Liney, remember that you can push the up arrow or the down arrow to maneuver yourself, and so I can dodge obstacles," or I don't remember exactly what it says. But basically in the downloaded version, it shows that like up arrow and down arrow ASCII characters. But on the web player, I guess maybe in the web font or whatever, the up and down arrow aren't supported. So basically it's just kind of blank, so it looks a little bit weird in the web player, and so that's why. And another thing that I already mentioned that went wrong is that the gameplay took way too long to nail down. I think on Saturday morning, like it was kind of at like a good point where it was pretty good, but it wasn't like really good, like where I wanted it to be. There was still some like weird things happening. So I was trying just like a whole bunch of different ways to find a good solution for it, and some things worked a little bit better than others. Some things were just like really bad, but eventually I came up with a pretty decent solution. It's not ideal. I did think of a better solution kind of halfway through development, but it was way too late at that point to go back and change it. So I was kind of going back and forth, and afterwards I was kind of thinking, like, I don't know, maybe it would have just been a little bit better if I would have just kind of stuck with some of my original gameplay feel, and moved on to some other things so I could get some other things in the game. But ultimately, I'm super happy with how the game feels, and I think some of the feedback on the game that I've already gotten has reflected that. People definitely like how the game plays, and it feels really good. So that is something that I'm proud of, but I think I just spent a little bit too much time on it, so I wasn't able to put some things into the game like audio assets. So that's the next thing that went wrong. One thing that I really wanted in this game was some actual like background music and sound effects, because most of my Ludum Dare games really don't have that. And kind of one of my goals for this Ludum Dare is make a really simple gameplay mechanic, but make a good full complete game, with art, audio, a little story, and everything. And I think I did a really good job on pretty much all of it except for the audio stuff. I mean, I definitely wasn't going to do anything too crazy. I was just going to use my microphone here. I did want to do some voiceover and maybe do a little bit of voice changing kind of on the text, so I could be reading that off. I think that would be kind of a cool little thing. And then basic sound effects for like when you hit one of the planets or when you pick up one of the power-ups and stuff like that. And just kind of having some sort of background music just to kind of make the mood of the game a little bit better. And then so the last thing that I kind of wanted to mention that fits into that sort of what went wrong category, as you may notice, there's a little bit kind of jittery movement. You can notice it especially at the beginning, when it's just kind of that dialogue section when the guy's walking on that like flat line. You'll see that he kind of like bounces back and hitches up a little bit. I'm not really sure what's happening there. I tried a bunch of things to potentially fix it, and it was worse at some points, and I got it to a point where it seemed like it was really good, but then it sort of came back a little bit, and I just don't really know what's going on. So that's something that I'm definitely going to have to tweak for my full release. Alright, so let's focus a little bit more on some of the positive things right now. So what went right during the development of this? Because I think there was a lot that went right during the development of this game. Again, I am extremely proud of this game, so there's a lot of good things that I can talk about here. But definitely, I think the core gameplay mechanic is probably my favorite thing. Like, it feels really good to control. It's not perfect. I think I'm gonna be able to nail it down a little bit better on my full mobile release. But as far as a 48-hour game jam goes, I am super happy with how it feels and how it plays. And I think it's sort of a unique mechanic. I mean, there are definitely games sort of like it, but you don't see it super often. Normally you're controlling the player, but in this you're kind of controlling the environment around the player. And the player is reacting based on those environmental changes that you're making, which is a fancy way for saying you're moving a line, then the player runs on the line. But I think this leads to some really cool and unique gameplay things. Basically, you kind of weave in and out of the planets, and then sometimes you kind of shift your focus from the line over to the player, and you're like, oh, is he going to clear under that planet, and is he going to get that power up? And then you focus back on the line and you're like, oh crap, I need to move real quick. So I think it sort of adds some interest to the gameplay mechanic, because it's not just your typical, you're moving around a player as you normally would in, any video game. And then so kind of expanding upon that, I think the next thing that went right is the difficulty level. I feel pretty good about the balance of this game. I mean, as you may be able to tell, the planets and asteroids are sort of randomly generated, so they'll kind of appear in random places, and sometimes they'll overlap, and sometimes they'll be really close, and sometimes they'll be a little further away from each other. But I think overall, like, the game is pretty balanced. You can definitely beat the game. It's pretty tough to beat it without continues, but I've done it. I challenge you to do the same. That would be super cool if you can. And then of course when the game speeds up, it gets a little bit more tougher because you got to react a little bit quicker. But I think the difficulty balance is kind of still there. The second half of the game is obviously going to be a lot harder than the first half. I do think there is some tweaking that could be done to the second half of the game in the full release, but again, it's pretty good for the 48-hour game jam. Next thing that went right is the humor of the game. I don't think this is like a hilarious game by any means, but I do always try to make, silly games for my game jam and try to up my grade in that humor category. And this time my game actually had like a little bit of a story, so I was able to kind of throw some jokes in there a little bit. And again, I think the game would be a little bit funnier with that end video of me kind of thanking the audience and making that little crack about how I'm just a game developer, I don't know what's at the edge of the universe. But I think the humor almost still kind of works, where it just goes staticky and then cuts out. Like, I think that's not equally as funny, but still pretty funny. So another thing that I'm super proud of is that I actually have a story and like a little bit of a dialogue system in there, which is, pretty cool. This game is kind of like cinematic almost. There's like kind of cut scenes almost. Originally I wanted it to be a little bit more cinematic. Like, I don't know if you could really tell, but in those notes that I put up at the beginning, there are things like, he zooms in on the player and then the camera zooms out for the actual gameplay. So that was kind of my original idea, but, in the short little time that I had, wasn't able to get that in. Again, likely something that will show up in the full mobile release. And then so some other cool things that I'm super proud of is the fact that this game actually has a checkpoint system that totally works. So, when you pass all those flags, it keeps a reminder of how far that you've traveled. So if you do get a game over and you do hit the continue, it'll spawn you back, and your progress will be right at the last flag that you hit. It does wipe away all your power-ups, and that is by design, because you shouldn't be able to keep, your power-ups that you've stored over when you're, basically you died and had to restart. And then so that's the next thing that I'm super proud of, is just that I had a simple little power-up system in there. You're able to fill up your meter, and then you hit the space bar, and then you can go super fast and you're invincible for a little bit. As that seems to be a pretty fun thing for people who have been playing the game already. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention is just kind of the graphical effects and artwork. I'm definitely proud of that. This may surprise you, but I'm by no means an artist, but it is always fun to pull out the old drawing tablet and get some cool little artwork in. Although it's, not the best, it's just kind of some pretty simple little animations and just kind of cartoony looking stuff. I feel like that's kind of my style, is that sort of cartoony looking thing. For the animation of the main player, I used a trick that I actually learned while I was in college, and it's basically where you make a rough sketch of kind of your player, and then you spread it out across all the frames and you make a walking animation and stuff like that. But then what you actually do is then you go back over to every single frame and you redraw over everything. So it kind of gives it this like hand-drawn look. I don't know if you can really tell. I'll put a video of the animation up on the screen, but you can see how like the lines are kind of like wiggling around. This is especially noticeable with just the main circle around the guy and like all his facial features and everything. I basically redrew those things on each animation frame. Again, it sort of gives it that hand-drawn look, and I think that's like a really cool thing. If you are doing that, you just need to be careful to not make it too exact, or you won't really see anything going on, and it may just kind of look like a little bug almost every once in a while where the thing kind of like freaks out. And you don't want to make it too, crazy, because otherwise it's just going to look like a jumbled mess and it doesn't really look good like that. But it's just kind of a cool, subtle little thing, and I like the effect of it. And then also we were able to get actually have 3 different like line colors in there. I mean, they're more of line gradients, I guess. So there's just kind of the standard, the one that you start off with, the red to orange. And if you do get a power-up, you get the red to yellow to green. And then in the second phase, you get the red, white, and blue America. And then the last cool little art thing that I'm happy with how it came out is that static at the end. It just kind of looks cool, I guess. I don't know how to put it any other way. So that's sort of what went right and what went wrong. I'm just going to talk very briefly about some things that I do differently. I probably would have stuck with one of my earlier game mechanics because I feel like it was good enough at that point where I could have made a complete game and actually had time to get some of the art and stuff like that in. Because I was kind of trying to nail down that gameplay feel for a good couple hours. Again, like I said, I'm happy with what the result was, but I think very early on there was a point where it was good enough. And I'm just kind of wondering what I would have been able to put into the game if I would have stuck with it being just good enough. And then maybe if I had a little bit more time, I would have been able to upload the game to the itch.io page a little bit sooner, and I would have been able to notice some of those bugs and figure out solutions for them. But I mean, as far as things go to do differently, I don't really have a whole lot. Again, I'm super proud with the results of my game. I think this is clearly the best Ludum Dare game jam game that I've made so far. I mean, this is my 4th Ludum Dare game jam, so I kind of sort of know what I'm getting into these days, and I think I was just really well prepared for this one. So what does the future of Edgerunner look like? Well, I definitely want to get this game ported over to mobile. There's definitely going to be a lot of changes that need to take place for mobile. This game is a 4:3 aspect ratio, and for mobile it's going to be more of a widescreen, kind of that 16:9 area. Of course, all phones have different aspect ratios, so I'm going to have to figure out a good solution for that. But I think the game will work a lot better with a wider screen because you have a little bit more time to react to the planets and asteroids coming in. Of course, I need to get touch controls working. I don't think that should be that difficult though. But I don't want to make too many changes initially. I definitely just kind of want to get it working on mobile devices, get it out there on the platforms. because I think that this game is a pretty good base. I think there's a lot of things that I can build off of and learn from, and definitely help my mobile development skills. But definitely let me know in the comment section below what sorts of features you'd like to see on a mobile release of this game. I'm definitely all ears. So anyways, we've been going for a little while now, and I think that's basically all I want to say for the Ludum Dare Game Jam version of my game Edge Runner. Definitely stay tuned to the channel for more updates on the mobile release of the game. I think I'm probably going to be talking about that a little bit more in the future. But again, I just wanted to say one last time that I am extremely proud of the game that I came up with. Thank you all for playing. Thank you all for watching so far. Again, if you want to know anything else about my game, feel free to drop it down in the comments section below. Or hey, even if you just want to let me know what your favorite part of the game Edge Runner is, that would be super awesome, and I can definitely focus to improve those things in the mobile release of the game. And with that, I think I'm going to wrap this video up here. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please hit that like button. Thank you once again for watching. Definitely stay tuned for lots more independent video game developer related content. I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video.